Hello, everybody. Thank you. Apologize for the late start here. It'll be worth it at the end, I promise. Thank you all for coming for today's legislative breakfast here, the final one of the season. So it's glad to see you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to the Eastside for the wonderful food, as always. Thank you for Rotary for the screen. Thank you for members of the media for coming here. And thank you especially to all the legislators for coming today. We will begin with Senator Bobby Starr, who has served for 46 years and serves the Orleans District and is on the Senate Committee of Agriculture and the Senate Committee on Appropriations. And because we have a full gamut today, we're trying to keep the talks to 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
5 minutes.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bobby Starr. Thank you. Well, I want to thank Dan for hosting this along with the East Side, and certainly thank North Country Hospital for supplying us with a wonderful breakfast. Thank you, Frank and crew. But anyways, it's... you know, as Dan said, I serve on ag and on appropriations, and I chair the ag committee, and we had I would say a so-so year on ag. Everything, the department bills and the agency bills, we got those all through. The two bills that were kind of a problem in ag, or maybe not a problem, but required a lot of discussion, was the NEK bill and the right to repair bill. And the NEK bill, you know, it all started from the loss of our honeybees. And, well, there's many reasons why, you know, animals and insects die and live. And from all the testimony that we received, it really came down to the point that maybe it's animal husbandry or insect and pest that were causing the problems more than the seed. And we had hearing after hearing, but what transpired in all, when you're doing behind you to see where the push is coming from to really kill something or pass something. And I believe that the advocates that are trying to do away with all pesticides and herbicides and all that hijacked the bill from the honeybee people. And I mean, we got hundreds and hundreds of emails, and I knew that they weren't coming from the bee people. They were coming from Brattleboro and Rutland and Bennington and all over. But anyways, we didn't have one farmer, not one, come in and say, you know, we could get along without this. And in Vermont, we use 1/10 of 1% of neonics to grow our corn in the country. And they said, well, New York did it. Well, we use 1% of what New York uses. So you say to yourself, well, how much is that? Well, we had a person figure that all out for it. Took one seed and scraped all the neonics off from it, or two, I guess, and then they figured it out. We use, in Vermont, 5,000 pounds, 2.5 tons in the entire state of neonics that goes on corn seed. Well, anyways, the bottom line is my committee wanted to make that strictly into a study. And we all have bosses, right? Well, my boss said, Bobby, I know you aren't going to like to hear this, but we got to get that bill back over to the House somehow. And he'd heard that the three of my committee members wanted, which is a majority, wanted to do a study. So I went back to the committee and said, we got to go to work on this. And we did spend a lot of time, but finally got the bill out so-so, with an extra year for our farmers beyond New York State. And so our farmers, they didn't like it. Richard's here somewheres. Yeah. And he can verify this if you need to ask anybody. But I said, well, we'll try to get that extra year on. And farmers said, so we'll maybe, hold our nose and pray and get it done. And so then we got it out on the floor, and we lost the extra year. And so my committee was pretty upset with that. The tractor bill, Holiday, and if I ramble on too long, the tractor repair bill, we got that just at the beginning of the session along with a dozen other bills, and we did spend a lot of time working on that. And you say, well, right to repair. I bought this piece of equipment and I don't have the right to repair it? Well, that's a misleading statement to start with, because if you go buy a lawnmower or a car or a truck or a tractor and you want to tear it all apart, I don't know who's going to stop you. So you don't need a right to repair. What they needed was a right to get diagnostic equipment owners and repair manuals. And so we put all that in there and stripped a lot of stuff out. And I think it's still in limbo somewheres because we sent it to the House and I thought we got it back, but maybe we didn't. But anyways, the budget bill, we passed that, which I sit on that committee, and at 8.6 million, a billion, that's a B. And, there's quite a lot of stuff in there, money for farm labor, housing. We spent the money different than the governor wanted to spend it to some degree. So there's a little controversy, but I spoke with him on Friday, and I think he's going to sign the thing because just the differences of philosophy and where you want to put the money. But our conservation districts had money in there. Loggers and forest production people had $1 million in there. Put a bunch of money into, well, it's in there, but nobody would see it, to help Sterling College, which had a rough time during the pandemic. We helped our county fairs. There's a 3-acre rule that says if you have more than 3 acres of roof runoff and pervious soils, you've got to have a water control system put in. And like our little fair in Barton, in Lindenville, it was going to cost them way more than they could afford to even keep the fair open. So Russ is here. We worked with the natural resources people at A&R, and they've agreed to put a couple of $3 million aside to help our small county fairs. Now, you notice I mentioned small. It's not set up so it all goes to Champlain Valley Fair. But Rutland's a small fair. Like, you know, it's a little bigger than ours, but not much. And so there's money in there to help with that. There's 3% increase for our designated agencies like VNA and Northeast Kingdom Mental Health and places like that. You know, they all run a real tight ship, and so there's money in there for them. There's $450,000 or so for a youth shelter place in St. Albans. The Community Justice Center, $300,000 in there to help them along. But anyways, there's a lot of stuff in there that will help a lot of people, and I just wanted to say at the tail end, because I'm running out of time. Should I just stop?
Keep going. He's going to get a chance at the end to give a little extra, okay?
At the end?
At the end.
Yeah, that's fine.
Everyone don't leave.
Because I don't want to take up the whole breakfast time. Thank you. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Senator Starr. And with all the delay this morning, I apologize because I made a grave error. I forgot to thank the sponsor, North Country Hospital, for sponsoring this wonderful event and being a key part of our community. So, thank you. And Wendy will just tell a little bit about it.
I can't see you out there because the beautiful sun is blinding me, but thank you everyone for being here today. I'm Wendy Franklin and I'm representing North Country Hospital, and yes, as Dan said, we are sponsoring the breakfast. Our president, Tom Frank, sends his regrets, but being the largest healthcare facility in the county, I know that he is very appreciative of the responsiveness and the access to our senators and representatives in our area. So thank you for that. It's been a busy time at the hospital. I'll just mention that last week we wrapped up National Nurses Week with a celebration right here in this room Friday night. Celebrating them and the good work that they do. And this week is National Hospital Week, so we will continue that celebration. So thank you for being here.
And next up, we have Senator Russ Ingalls, who's been a member since 2019, and he serves Essex Newport District, and he's the Senate Committee on Institutions and the Senate Committee on Transportation. He's the chair on the first and the clerk on the second.
Thank you, Dan. Thank the Chamber, and again, thank North Country Hospital. And I also want to thank both hospitals that are in my districts, you folks and NVRH. I think that the communication that we have is going really, really well, better than what I've seen before. You guys are able to engage and tell us, what's important to you. We passed a bill the other day that I didn't particularly care about. And I had to vote no a couple times to get a little bit better, so it was good. But at the end of the day, I felt good enough to where it was important to you folks, and we passed the bill. So I felt good about that. And not only was it with help with you folks, but with NVRH and conversations about, hey, what can you live with? What can't you live with? How can we make it work? And it was just in great communications that was able to make that happen. So I was very appreciative of that. But it is what it's all about. It's communications amongst the public. It's all of you folks hearing back from you and listening, and what works for you. And I voted for a lot of things that personally I probably didn't really want to support. But if it's not what I want to do, it's what you folks want, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to represent. And we're appreciative of that. And again, thanks for a great crowd. It's nice when we get people here. It's nice to see different faces, and it's nice to hear from you about legislation that you care about. Senate institutions passed nearly a $100 million bill this year. What we're most proud about is we have a lot of dollars in there that are match dollars that do a lot as far as how these waters that we have here, all the waters. As I tell people in my real estate business, we have a lot of water up here. You can stand in Newport, Vermont, and if you ask me where to go kayaking, I'll name off 15 bodies of water within 20 minutes and forget 15. So we have a lot of water, and we have to be mindful about where that water goes. We have better than, in this next year's budget, in that we have better than $60 million worth of clean water initiatives to help these wastewater facilities and everything as far as just how the water runs off the land. And that is not $60 million that we spent. Some of that money is 14 to 1. So for every dollar that we had $14 worth of federal money. So very, very important as far as that. We're still working with the state as far as in Newport to what we're going to do with the courthouse. We've kind of nixed the idea of putting it where the state had wanted, so we're going to keep on working hard about that. There still is some talks about high-level talks about eventually taking back over the waterfront. So we're starting to have those conversations. I spoke with the governor about that one-on-one a little while ago. So those are kind of neat, important talks. Transportation, we're plowing, we're paving as many roads, almost as many miles of roads as we did last year. Which is really, really good. We're going to spend about $120 million on paving. So there's not going to be very many. Well, there'll all be potholes, but there'll be less potholes when it's all said and done. So we're pushing hard as far as on that. We put more monies. We were very much an advocate for putting more dollars back into the town's hands to give them discretion about the projects, those projects that never seem to get done, those ones that just linger and linger and linger. So we worked hard as far as to put more dollars back into the towns and cities' hands. You know, I will agree with Bobby about the budget. I believe the governor's going to sign it, and there are some different initiatives as far as what he believes and not. But I will give the Senate a lot of kudos, Senate Appropriations, as far as taking a bill that I thought was pretty terrible when it came over from the House and made it a lot more tolerable and redirected dollars back into some areas that didn't see any increases. Bobby had talked about the public service part of it, the people that are out there every day, the people that are tied to the hospitals in one form or another, or the people out there taking care of our people who are in crisis. You know, it's a thankless job. It really is. I mean, you just don't get up every day and say, oh, you know, I just want to go do that. I want to just hear bad news all the time, all day long, and then come home and then decide, oh, yeah, I'm just going to put a smiling face on, because after a while it wears you down. But, you know, it does make a difference if you can make a wage that is, will allow you to do some other things. So when you're not working, you can go afford to do some things. So I'm very happy about that part of the budget. But, you know, this will be the last time this year that you're going to hear me say, you know, some things. There's a lot of harmful things that are going on. We've got 70 cents a gallon coming in January 1st, if that gets in passing, if we don't change some leadership. We've got a $100 million payroll tax starting in July. It's going to be $100 per month per employee, roughly, and about 3 times that for employers. So, you know, that makes a difference. We got starting in July again, we got $1 billion 10-year program, $1 billion cost coming to renewable energy standard, which is just all it is just taking your energy that you're using right now and just mandating that it comes from renewable sources, as long as they're not old sources. A lot of the Hydro-Quebec power that's coming down, that's too old of sources. They want newer sources. They don't want any nuclear. They don't want anything that they want. And we're having a real hard time of even calling biomass renewable. So again, that is starting July 1st, at least a 14% increase on your electric bill, and then it's going to go up more, just all for, instead of waiting and taking your time and planning effectively, just forcing that issue right now. We've got a 14.4% property tax increase. That's baked. That's coming. That's coming, this tax bill. And then we have a new Act 250 bill that is That is, you know, if you talk to the press, if they talk about it, they talk about all how we revamped Act 250. We actually just made it the toughest. You know, it's trying to drive housing where people don't want to build into the downtown centers, into the floodplains. But yeah, then they won't approve that. But it's really trying to punish what our type of lifestyle is, where if you have 5 acres or 10 acres and you want to put in a house, I mean, you don't want to just build right by the road. You bought that 5 or 10 acres and you want to put it up on the hill so that when you do put that house in, you've got a better view, which brings you more value and brings you more peace of mind and brings you more enjoyment. And they've come up with an idea now to stop that because they really do believe that fragmentates the forest and throws all the wildlife into disruption. And so they're going to make it now, if you have a driveway that's 800 feet long, you have to go through Act 250. So we have a lot of 800-foot driveways in this area. So I'm sorry for the doom and gloom. I really am. I don't mean to be that way, but you need to have a realistic expectation about what's coming forward. And there are some good things within the budget, as we've pointed out, and I do feel that Senate Appropriations has done a good job with that, but this is above and beyond any other type of spending outside of the budget that's coming as far as tax increases. So thank you. I think we'll have some more time, and Dan's getting a little anxious, so thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ingalls. Next up will be Representative Mike Marcotte, who's been a member since 2004 and serves Orleans J. He's on the House Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. He is the chair of that committee. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. Dan, thank you for the chamber, the hospital for providing us the wonderful breakfast this morning. We appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for coming out to this last breakfast of this legislative session. So I do represent Orleans Lamoille. Along with Representative Higley, it's a 2-seat district. I guess I think I want to concentrate on probably 1 or 2 bills that my committee had put out this year. And very important bills. You may not have heard too much about them, but the one is H707, which creates a new Office of Workforce, a Director of Workforce Expansion and Development. This is something that I've been working on, I would say, for at least 10 or 15 years. So this will provide a person under the governor, in the governor's office to administration to make sure that they coordinate all of the workforce trainings, developments, everything, all the monies that are out there, so that we have better coordination in our workforce programs throughout the state. Right now, what happens in the Department of Labor right now, they look at more of the federal programs that come in, but there are a lot of other programs that are outside of state government. So we need to get those coordinated. So I'm happy that that's gone through. I look forward to continuing to work with the governor's office and bringing a new person on board and getting that program up and running. Second bill, or actually it's 2 other bills that we combined into one, is H121. That's a data privacy bill. And we also have put in S289, which is called the Kids Code Bill. So S289 came over to us from the Senate. We sent over H121 over to them. The 2 chambers worked on both bills. The Senate took a very much different direction than we did on H121. They looked more at the business side of it. We looked more at the consumer side of it. On the kids code, we did more work on that. What we did was we looked at data privacy. We put all of the data privacy pieces into 121. There were data privacy pieces in S289. S289, the kids code, is actually a product. They're apps that kids can download we took those apps as being a product that are being produced, and that when any business produces a product, there's liability that goes along with it. They need to make sure that their product is safe, and so that's how we looked at that. California had produced a kids code bill. It's being challenged in court now because of First Amendment rights. So we took a different approach, again, looking at it as a product. So we took out all the First Amendment issues and proceeded to go from there. At the beginning of last week, I probably gave a 1% chance that H121 was going to pass. We continued to push. The House received the bill back. We put those two bills together. We sent them back over to the Senate. They continued to work on it. I received a call from the chair of Senate Economic Development about 8:45 Thursday night, saying that we might be able to put something together, and so we worked out some issues that we had on Friday, and both chambers were able to pass a very strong data protection and a kids code bill. Very proud of that. Has a lot of meaning for all of you here. We're putting you, Vermonters, back into control of your own data. You'll be able to determine whether or not you, and it's all up to you, whether you want a business that you're working with on the internet to capture your data, whether or not you want to allow them to sell it or not, whether or not you want them to delete all your data. So this will have a big effect on Vermonters. It will also have a big effect on what's going on throughout the country. We would, if the governor signs this, and that's still an if, I'm sure that the business lobby will be after him pretty heavily to veto this bill, especially big tech. We saw how they operate. Big tech, you talk about Google, Amazon, Meta, all of those big tech industries there are associations out there. I think there are about 5 or 6 of them that they fund that then work with different state associations, giving them information in order to help try to sink or water down these data privacy bills that are coming out throughout the states. The reason that the states are taking this on is because the federal government absolutely does nothing to protect our data. And so we as states have to take that on. We worked with multiple states, multiple representatives and senators from other states who have taken this on as well. I invited 5 of them into my committee. We took testimony from them a couple weeks ago. We learned that a lot of the issues that they had found in their states, where their entities trying to sink their bills or water them down, were the same entities that were in Vermont trying to do the same thing. And it's very interesting that one of the biggest pieces in all of this is a private right of action. It means giving you, everyone here, the ability to sue another business, sue a business for doing you harm. They didn't want any private right of action. They wanted to take away your right, extinguish your right as a citizen to go to the courts to get redress on any grievances that you have with a business where you can't get them to fix it. So that was probably the biggest issue that we worked out. We provided a private right of action, but only for data brokers and for the largest companies that are out there, companies that collect that have data on over 100,000 Vermonters. So those are really huge companies. So we were able to get that through. It's a big win for Vermont, big win for you. And what I would ask you all is, if you believe in having the ability to take care of your own data, to have responsibility, to let the governor know that. Call the governor's office and please tell him to pass 121. With that, I'm going to let others have their turn at the mic, and hopefully we have time for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be Representative Mark Higley. He's been a member since 2009 and also serves the Orleans-Lamoille District. He's on the House Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs, and he is the ranking member.
Well, good morning, everybody. As Senator Starr said, maybe some of the stuff that I've going to express here isn't completely the truth because we just finished up at 2:30 in the morning on Saturday morning. So I'm not convinced that I know everything that happened at the last minute, but I'll get started. I guess usually I end up with things that I've supported and that I think are good. As Senator Ingalls said, there's a lot down there. Matter of fact, most of it I think isn't good for us here in the Northeast Kingdom. One thing that I think is good, we got the Salisbury Fish Hatchery, some money to keep it going. There's also a study to look at how we're going to keep it going in the future. Senator Ingalls on the Senate side, Representative Pat Brennan on the House side went into appropriation and testified how important that is as well. Just a big ticket item first that I'd like to talk about is the yield bill. That's the bill that sets the education tax rate. It came out of Ways and Means Committee 8-4, I believe, with the 4 Republicans voting no. It sets a average bill across the state at 13.8%. There's some new taxes in there. It's a tax on cloud software and a 3% surcharge on lodging registered as short-term rentals, first in the nation. It's an ongoing estimated amount to raise about $26.5 million. There was $69 million of one-time revenue used in this, which is a real concern if you think about it, because that's going to put us behind next year. I guess as far as government operations, we had an unbelievable amount of bills come through our committee. I think my concern is, especially with the ones that came down from the Senate, instead of having problems where we can correct a particular issue, it seems like now the bills are coming out that are 60 pages, 100 pages, all that, which is pretty much rewrite, pretty much a takeover, trying to remove power from the governor and include it more in the legislature. And that's a concern for me. I mean, once these bills started to come through, we'd have testimony from the agencies coming in and they'd go, time out, you know? Show us the people that we need for this, for all these changes. And not only that, but we're trying to do a lot of these on our own anyway. So some of them in our committee were the ethics bill. It's a state and municipal ethics guidelines, open meeting laws. You may remember during the pandemic we had, online meetings. Now we want to go back to, or at least I do too, and it was passed, a hybrid system where you have to have a in-person location as well as some online information. We had S-220, which is a library bill concerning to me. They want to, well, they got it passed. Reduce in public libraries now, parents can go in and see what their kids, their children have been checking out 16 years and younger. They changed that to 12 years. It's a theme down there of requiring, whether it's mental health therapy or all kinds of things, lowering that age to 12, real concerned. Another big bill that was out there was Make Big Oil Pay. It's a VBERG initiative. Pretty interesting, talking about, I asked the presenter of the bill on the floor if they'd taken any testimony from the big oil companies that they're going to sue, and they said one, I believe, of some National Fuel Dealers Association, in a sense. Didn't tell me initially what they had said, but I got up again and asked, and I said, well, were they on board with this? And of course, it was a no, but it's an opportunity for the Treasurer's Office to set up an account They're going to ask for this money. If they don't get it, then they're going to sue. As you can imagine, if that even goes through, which we're the first in the country to do that, you can imagine that they're definitely not going to keep the rates the same if they win in a court case. Again, that H687, which is the Act 250 protection, I think Senator Ingalls talked about that. It's not going to be good for our rural areas. It protects to be determined ecological sensitive areas. A lot of this is going to be going through rules and a mapping study for some of this. It's going to be putting Vermont in tiers, loosening its laws in the municipal areas and strengthening it and protections over critical natural resources areas. It's creating a property transfer tax on second homes. It's going to bring in $10 million. And a bunch of real concerning stuff for the rural areas there, if you ask me. Another committee that I'm on is LCAR. We've had, that's a legislative committee on administrative rules. So a lot of times when these bills go out, our LCAR has to look at the rules that these agencies draft up in regards to a lot of this stuff. We've had a lot of interesting and controversial issues since last fall. One was on the rules on trapping and coyote hunting. Again, the majority in LCAR didn't approve of what the Fish and Wildlife Board had done. I did. They'd worked hard. I think they did a super job. The most extensive best management practices for trapping and strictest ones on coyote hunting. The chair of the Senate side, who's also on LCAR, I wasn't happy and put in another bill, S-258. It got hung up in natural and environment, which is a good thing, I believe. I'm not sure why, other than they may not have had enough votes to override a governor's veto. We had wake boats. We had residential building energy standards and commercial building energy standards, where we asked the agency if they would postpone action on those till July. There was another bill this year looking at another study in regards to whether there should be a statewide building code and using those residential building energy standards for our new general contractor registration process. They've already got some changes proposed for that, for registering of contractors, whether they have to check off what geographic area they work in, a list of fields that they're proficient in, a contract containing the requirements for the residential building energy standards, and so on. Again, I guess I'll end there, but folks, we need a change in leadership down there, or it's going to be unaffordable for Vermonters, especially my rural constituency, to live in Vermont. So please do all you can to make sure that there's conservative folks down there, because we're headed on a downhill track. Thank you.
Next is Representative Brian Smith, who's been a member since 2017 and serves Orleans Derby. There we go. And he's on the House Committee on Environment and Energy.
Thank you, Dan. And thank you, Wendy and North Country Hospital for doing this breakfast this morning. We need to work on the Green Mountain Care Board a little bit. But we will. I spoke with my father the other day. Before I start getting into this, I'm going to try to fill in 5 minutes. I spoke with my dad last night, and he suggested to me that Bobby Starr is the longest-serving legislator in Vermont's history, and that could be. I know there are a few down there. Senator Mars has been, what, 42 years, Ross? Yeah, well, Bobby's been 40, what? Yeah, congratulations, you won. Let me see here. Representative Higley covered most of what I was going to talk about, so I can shorten this speech up. Thank you. 687 was the big Act 250 bill that came out of our committee and was passed. Trying to follow a 160-page bill is not that easy. But I passed the bill off to our town administrator. He read through it a number of times and came up with the idea that it wasn't good for small rural businesses, good for Rutland, Burlington, bigger cities, and so I did not vote for the bill. 258 came out of our committee and went to the floor, and well, it died before it went anywhere else, so that was the Fish and Game wanting to reestablish our board. We had probably, I believe we had 4 representatives in our committee that was opposed to the bill, and a number of other places throughout the House kept it from becoming a law. So I think that was a pretty good accomplishment that happened this year. Property taxes, we've talked about them already, 13.8% increase. You can't blame the minority party for that, anybody. I got a number of bills here that I just wanted to mention. You want an idea of how much waste of time and waste of money we do in the legislature. Psychedelic therapy is going to happen. That's Senate Bill 114. They're going to make it possible for psilocybin to be used and LSD, along with whatever else they think is going to work. 259 is the fossil fuel expenses that are going to happen. The state is, they're not calling it suing, they're calling it trying to grab, I guess you could say. But I guess what we're trying to do is figure out a way to subsidize new programs without having to raise taxes. So they're gonna sue the fossil fuel companies. Pretty bad bill, bad idea. The library bill has been spoken of, where you're going to allow 12-year-olds and up to take out any book they want without parental notification. Not a good bill. And I will touch on H48 and H345 when I'm finished with this. House 187 is an act relating to student application of sunscreen. That's a good one. House Bill 684. We have a new state mushroom. We really needed that. House Bill 363. You can't discriminate against someone that has a different hairstyle than you. So I'm not going to comment on your hairstyle. S18 was the tobacco ban. I think there may be a veto coming on that. It's done? Good, good. S39 pay raise for legislators. Russell, is that done? Or is it still in study? Done. Good. And we're going to have a sister state. Does that go anywhere?
There's 4 or 5 states that we're aligned with as far as to have some common goals.
So needless to say, this session was a waste of a lot of money. And back to House Bill 48, it's something that I've attempted to work on over the last year. We're trying to get the state to relocate or in search of an alternative landfill. I was promised by my legislative chair, my committee chair, that this was going to get taken care of. Promised many times, and that didn't happen. So I've got a feeling that it will still be pursued in another avenue. And House Bill 345 was a lake in crisis. There was one criteria that included real estate values. Well, if this lake is polluted, doesn't matter what the real estate values are. You know, real estate is real estate, and clean water is a whole different subject. So that's going to get looked at as well. And I think study groups, we're all elected officials, and we're sent down to Montpelier to do a job. And I don't know how many bills came up with study groups this year, but they're passing the buck to somebody else to come back and suggest to them how they should make the law. That's not what we were elected to do. on another note, that's about all I'm going to say for now. But this is going to be my last term. I'm going to, I guess it's an announcement right now, but I will not be seeking re-election. I've got other things I want to do. I'm 73, and I think the Caribbean sounds a lot nicer than Montpelier. So. But I found someone and seeked out and found a very good replacement for me in Montpelier. And Richard Nelson's going to make an announcement sometime this morning, so I'm not going to leak it out any further than I just did. But, and I really would sincerely like to thank all of my constituents and all of my friends in the town of Derby that have supported me for 4 terms. And it's kind of bittersweet. I had a little trouble leaving the Capitol the other night, but I was glad to leave at 2 o'clock in the morning. So thank you all, and that's the way it goes.
Thank you. Next up will be Representative Woody Page. He's been a member since 2019, serves the Orleans 2 district, and he's on the House Committee of Appropriations.
So this is the package where our appropriations is in, and if anybody wants to look at it after, you can see where the money is going. It's going to a number of places. Our debt service, transportation, commerce and community development, public safety, general education, property, human services. And as has been previously said before, we have $8.6 billion budget. It's about, the House budget was, or this particular budget is about $10 million more than the governor recommended. And I'll go out on a limb and say that the governor will sign it. There were some things that he said that he was not pleased with, but he can live with it. So that's what compromise is all about, and our governor has done that. We do look, the House does look to the Senate. They are like our, the adults in the State House, and the items that we pass from the House, in many cases, we look to the Senate to correct some of the things that we have done. And so thank you, Senators, for your oversight and looking after us. I thought I'd go over some more things in appropriations and tell you where some of the money is going. The budget does meet all of our pension obligations. It has a 3% rate increase to community providers, including designated agencies such as, the Northeast Kingdom Human Services, specialized service agencies, adult day centers, area agencies on aging, and residential care, about $19 million all together. $1.3 million to the Department of Vermont Health Access for their Medicaid program, as well as reimbursement rates for skilled nursing. $1.3 million for non-emergency medical transportation for appointments. $11 million for the Department of Aging and Independent Living for their caseloads. $4.9 million for statutory nursing home rate increases. Housing. About $7.5 million for emergency housing, in addition to $16.5 million for one-time appropriations and $20 million for contingency appropriations. There's been a lot of issues regarding our housing of the homeless people, and there has been some changes to the hotel voucher program. The governor and the House and Senate have tried to remedy that hotel voucher program. I don't know as if it's completely remedied, It is going to cost the state a great deal of money for the housing of our homeless, and hopefully with some of these monies for these new programs, it will alleviate that hotel voucher program, because it literally is bankrupting the state for what we pay. Public health, $2 million from the Evidence-Based Education and Advertising Fund for opioid distribution, $4.1 million for opioid abatement funds for substance use prevention and treatment, $1.2 million on the opioid abatement fund for recovery residents. Here again, this is very controversial. There's supposed to be an injection site in the Burlington area. Hopefully it will remedy our opioid epidemic. But the governor believes that perhaps we should be putting these monies towards what we already have available for substance use. He feels that those programs seem to be working, and that's where the money should be going rather than starting up a new program. Justice investments. We all know that our justice system is, I won't say failing, but the wheels of progress are slow. $1.86 million for the Defender General's office, $2.86 million for judiciary for new positions. There is a huge backlog in our justice system, and hopefully these funds will help alleviate that. Workforce development, Representative Mike Marcotte has already spoken about that. Flood and natural disaster mitigations. $12.5 million for Federal Emergency Management Administration. These are to match those funds that are coming in. $1.75 million to support S213 initiatives relating to the regulations of wetlands, river corridors, developments, as well as dam safety. $1 million for financial assistance to logging contractors to ensure water quality. All these things are important based upon, our recent flooding that occurred last summer. Are you trying to give me the hook? Yes. So just one final thing, though. As time goes on, and I've only been in appropriations one term, but it seems like our needs are becoming much greater than the revenues that we collect. And that is very concerning, I think, for all of us. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be Representative Larry Laber. He's a member since 2022, and he serves Essex-Orleans District, and he's on the House Committee on General Housing.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation. Since the previous speakers have covered everything I planned, I thought I'd give you a synopsis. When we started this session, as this is the tail of the biennium, we had over 700 and some odd bills that had been proposed and worked on. We ended up actually passing, as bills passed as of 9 o'clock last night, 240. So when you narrow that down, these 2 pages are just what was done in the last 2 weeks. So when legislators say they had some long days, they weren't fibbing. I'd like to give you a little synopsis of how some of the money and some of the bills changed. I'm on housing. We didn't really speak much about housing. We spoke more about general affairs. Housing is in a crisis. We know that. So that means shoveling more money into different alphabets, if you will, VHIP, whatever. And we did a lot of that. When we left, I think the Treasury Secretary said our revenues this year so far are about $110 million ahead of 23. So that's a sign of our economy going up. Now, if we can nail down inflation, we may be able to afford some of these things. But when you take the requests for, and I'll jump over to the general part, in our committee came requests for safe injection sites. Well, that's kind of an anomaly, and I voted against it. And the reason I voted against it, because there was no reference made to inhalation products, they just talked about injections. While a lot of the consumption of the younger generation is to take an opiate, crush it, and snuff it. Is that an injectable? No, it's not. But the lungs will pass through opiates pretty fast. And then you need your naloxone. And that budget, by the way, for just the naloxone is over $2 million. That we're all paying for somebody else's habit. And most of it is recreational. When we get to base appropriations, we added a lot of one-time funds, 1.3 million for non-emergent medical transport. Now, the healthcare industry already knows. If you look at the EMS revenue, they don't get it if they don't transport. So they go to make a house call or whatever and deem the patient doesn't need an emergency room service. They don't transport. So the time at place and the utilization of resources costs people money, but they're not getting reimbursed. So it makes for a tight budget for them. So we did allocate monies for that. Justice. There was reference made that we're behind in a court schedule. Well, it's manpower related. We did put money in for 3 more Superior Court judges. We did put more money in for justice directives, which is staffing, et cetera. Public health, I briefly touched on the safe injection site. What I didn't tell you was that it started off at $1.1 million to establish one in Burlington. Well, that quickly grew to 2 injection sites. And that's where the revolt came through. No. Make it a study. Look at what 1 does, and we'll fund the 1. So 2 got reduced to 1. Some people weren't happy campers, but why should the rest of Vermont subsidize Burlington? You got a problem down there, solve it. But don't ask us to fund it. Court diversion, we put $297,000 out of the general fund to court diversion just because of the increased caseload. The Defender General, the average caseload takes over 700 days to solve because of lack of staffing. That's crazy. Then you get into a timeliness of fair and just trial. That's about it. I mean, they've covered everything else. So I yield to the next speaker. Thank you.
And next up is Representative Catherine Sims. She's been a member since 2023 and serves Orleans District 4, and she's on the House Committee on Ways and Means.
Morning, everyone. Thanks to Dan and the Chamber and the hospital, and for all of you for being here. I always really appreciate these opportunities to come share what's happening in Montpelier and take your questions and comments and feedback. I'm in my second term, so I started in 2020, represent Albany, Craftsbury, Greensboro, Glover, and wanted to just share a couple of high-level reflections on this session. So as other members have alluded to, this has been a challenging biennium. We've had a lot of big issues on our plate, and add to that we had 50 new members in the House, including 12 new committee chairs, so a lot of folks kind of getting their sea legs under them. And with our federal COVID stimulus dollars ending and revenues not growing, we knew that we would face some tough challenges this session. You've already heard about the budget that we passed, $8.6 billion on a voice vote with a signal of support from the governor. Incredibly challenging year. The needs that we have, we are being asked to do more with less. Revenues for this year, 2020, or this coming year, 2025, are almost $20 million less than 2024. So we are spending less money this year in our budget, almost $58 million across the three funds, the general fund, the transportation fund, and the capital bill. But despite having less revenue and spending less, we made some tough decisions between our wants and our needs. And as Representative Page kind of walked through, the committee did the tough work of fulfilling our commitment to our reserves, to our pensions, and making essential investments in economic development, workforce, housing, human services, the critical day-to-day work of government. One of the things that I spent a lot of time and energy on was Act 250, kind of committed to modernizing our land use regulations to address our housing crisis, the need to increase resiliency in all of our communities. After lots and lots and lots of negotiations throughout the session, the Rural Caucus, a bipartisan coalition where I'm one of the co-chairs. We were active throughout the entire session, including in the last 2 days of the session. Brian Smith can attest, I was literally running back and forth between his committee and the administration's office, trying to get that bill to a place that we could all live with, knowing how critical it is that we meet this moment. And I think we landed in a good place. The 687, the Act 250 bill, includes really important exemptions from Act 250 for housing in our villages and downtowns so that we can build more to address our housing crisis. And it sets in motion a process towards a three-tier system, a location-based jurisdiction that recognizes there are places that we really want to, that we need growth, and we want to accelerate that and remove regulatory burdens while also providing critical protections for our most vital natural resource areas, and worked really hard to get in language to ensure that this was a rulemaking process where the public has an opportunity to weigh in, and that we explicitly say that Tier 3 cannot be all of rural Vermont, that every town must have an opportunity to identify where it wants to grow and what we're protecting moving forward. So I don't think everybody loves everything in this bill, but I think it's a really important compromise, and fought hard to kind of get that across the finish line. And I'll also mention I was pleased that one of the bills that I introduced, H128, was incorporated into this bill that provides additional exemptions for businesses that are on farms and our wood products manufacturing industry, recognizing how important our working landscape is, and pleased to work with the Agency of Agriculture on that as we move through the bill. I want to highlight some of the public safety work that we do. All Vermonters deserve to feel safe at home in their communities, and there were a number of bills that we moved forward to address some of the concerns that we're seeing. S58 increases the number of crimes for which juvenile offenders can be charged as adults. It delays the next phase of raise the age, where nonviolent offenders would be referred to family court, and creates harsher penalties for drug-related offenses. S195 increases supervision of people who are accused of crimes before their day in court. H538 creates new retail theft penalties, and H563 makes it a crime to trespass into someone's vehicle. So some of the ways that we're trying to respond to our challenges around public safety right now. I wanted to highlight 3 of my bills that got passed this session. One of them is H622, an EMS bill, alluded to by Larry Labor. So this addresses some of the challenges our emergency service providers have faced, not being reimbursed for treatment without transportation to a hospital, recognizing that we want to do everything we can to treat people in their homes. It increases education and training funds, and it sets us in motion to have a 5-year strategic vision for EMS to make sure that when you call for help, there's someone who can come to your aid. I worked with another bill that I worked on was that I introduced was 626. Worked with Mike Covey from Vermont Tradition Coalition to create an animal welfare bill that establishes the Office of Animal Welfare to help create a unified system for addressing our animal welfare rules and regulations, and Representative Higley's committee did tremendous work on both 622 and 626. And do not confuse the animal welfare bill with S258, the Fish and Wildlife bill that would change the board and ban hunting. I was part of the coalition, making sure that leadership knew that was not the right bill at the right time, and that didn't move forward this year. Another bill of mine that I want to highlight is 657. That's a telecommunications modernization bill. So that was a revenue-neutral bill that sought to modernize how we treat communications property in a more competitively neutral way, and to stabilize funding for critical public services like E911. We've had problems over the last several years with that fund, having to backfill it with general fund, and this stabilizes that funding revenue so that we're adequately supporting 911. So let's see, where am I? I guess I do want to mention, so, I see my job as supporting policies that do good by rural Vermont and bringing forward some of those ideas. It also sometimes means voting no when we're looking at things that I don't think are right for our communities, and so just want to highlight a couple of areas, where I felt like we weren't doing the right thing at the right time. So S18 was mentioned before, the ban on flavored tobacco, that is already illegal for our youth, and I don't think prohibition is an effective strategy to deterring use. So voted no on that, along with voting no on the renewable energy standard, as was highlighted before. Many of our utilities are already committed to 100% renewable, and this bill would have required more in-state purchasing and had real concerns about the impact on ratepayers. And others have mentioned the yield bill, H677. So this is the annual bill where we set property tax rates to raise sufficient revenues to support voter-approved school budgets. So every year we get sent a bill and we have to pay that bill. There are tremendous pressures facing our schools right now with total budgets nearly $200 million over previous years. The bill that we worked on invests significant one-time and ongoing revenue to try to reduce property taxes. We landed on 13.8% as the average increase. And I voted no on that bill because I don't think Vermonters at this time can face that kind of double-digit increase in property taxes. And because we didn't do enough to couple that with long-term cost containment, we can't be here year after year. And so, concerned that we're not doing enough to make structural changes in our system. But I will say, I'm not just voting no. I am working hard to get to yes and make these bills better. So in the coming 4 weeks before our veto override session, I'll be working with other members of Ways and Means, folks on the Senate side and the administration, so that if and when the governor vetoes the yield, we have a plan B that seeks to, reduce property tax rates and move further, faster on structural change. I think we do our best work when everyone is at the table finding a way forward together. So, in response to other folks' comments, I don't think it matters what party label you have. I think what matters is, are you at the table bringing voices from our community forward? And whether you're getting things done for our region. So it's been an honor to serve and represent our communities down there, and looking forward to the next part of this presentation, which includes, it's all up there.
Thank you. And before we begin the next stage, which is going to be amazing, I'd like to thank the attendees and apologize that we don't have enough time for questions this week. That's my fault for the late start. And it does mean that next season we're going to bring the lights back with the timers on them for everybody. Thank the representatives and senators for being here, members of the media, the Eastside for the excellent lunch, and the hospital for sponsoring this presentation. And so for this next part, we're going to have Catherine talk for a minute, and she has a nice presentation here that she's going to get running.
Yeah, throughout. Yeah. I'm not going to be talking throughout the presentation, but just want, I think we're all here probably to hear our updates, but hopefully mainly to celebrate Senator Bobby Starr. He has served our region so admirably for nearly 5 decades. Talking to him over the last, there's not a project in our region that he hasn't had a hand in helping make it happen, whether it's a school building, whether it's a bridge, whether it's saving Sterling College. He has done so much for us. And he does it with style. I don't know if any of you all have seen. He has this incredible blue suit with, and he's got tie clips and cowboy boots. He makes the kingdom look good down there. And he does it with this incredible aw shucks and kind of maverick and humorous style. This guy knows how to get stuff done. Often people talk about this legendary time when he killed his own bill after having moved all the really important parts to another bill, and no one saw it coming, and he has about 101 tricks up his sleeve that he's been using to make Vermont better and preserve and protect our way of life up here. He is leaving a lasting legacy in so many ways, and including the dairy compact work, which was just incredible, the universal school meals work last session. It kind of feels like it's the end of an era, but I know that your legacy will continue to have a positive impact on all of us. And so put together, worked with Anita Starr, his wife, to dig up some photo gems from the past that we'll just kind of have scrolling here if Todd can, and I can help navigate that if needed. Just want to thank you so much, and to thank Anita for putting up with Bobby being gone for 46 years, Tuesday through Friday, and really excited for this next chapter for you, and I hope it includes lots of time with the grandkids, some travel, getting out on the bike more, maybe not having to shovel as much snow in the winter. You deserve to put your feet up and do some other things, and so thank you to you both. And so this will just kind of scroll while others do other awesome things. So I'm going to hand it back to Dan.
Okay. So during this session in celebration of Senator Starr, there's been a resolution that has been passed, and Senator Russ Ingalls is going to come up and read the resolution.
Again, Bobby, thank you. And grin and bear it, so you've got a little bit coming here. So it's a great honor that we were able to put this together. This had started with Representative Page, and then quickly all of us jumped onto this, and we have a little resolution that was read on the Senate floor, and we'd like to read that resolution here today. Senate Resolution 18. Whereas Bobby Starr has resided nearly all his life in the village of North Troy and graduated from North Troy High School. And whereas a businessman, he is the president of the trucking company Star United Incorporated, but has his true passions in public service. And whereas in the town of Troy, of which the village of North Troy is a part, Bobby Starr has sat on the zoning board and planning commission, the school board, and the board of civil authority, and has served as town moderator. And regionally, he served as a member of the Orleans-Essex North Supervisory Union Board, and for its successor, the North Country Supervisory Union, as moderator. And whereas His initial election as House member from Troy occurred in 1978, and the 2004 election sent him across the State House hallway to become one of the 2 senators representing Orleans District. And whereas a legislator, Bobby has been focused on Vermont's crucial agricultural sector, especially dairy, farming, and his leadership has included long tenures, ably chairing the House from 1985 to 2000, and the Senate 2013 to 2024 committees on agriculture. And in the policy area, he has chaired the Senate Committee on Education from 2009 to 2012. And whereas Bobby Starr was instrumental in the establishment of the Northeast Interstate Compact for Dairy Pricing, an organization designed to facilitate an economically viable base price for the region's dairy farmers, milk, and on a lighter side, his teams frequently won the interbranch legislative milking competition at the Vermont Farm Show. And whereas continuing Vermont's agricultural heritage through the preservation of the state's farmland has always been of great importance to Senator Robert Starr, and he has actively supported the current use program, which was originally enacted in 1978 and has led the efforts to improve and update the legislation. And whereas a Vermont Technical College alumnus and State College trustee, Senator Robert Starr was a strong advocate for the school's educational programs related to agriculture and those students studying agriculture. And whereas in 2024, Robert Starr is concluding an illustrious 4.5 decades as an Orleans District member of the General Assembly. Now, therefore, he be resolved by the Senate and the House of Representatives that the General Assembly honors Robert A. Starr of Orleans District for his decades of distinguished public service, and it be further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to Senator Robert Starr. Come on. Thank you. And we have some guests here. Before we have Bobby say his words, we have the honor of having the Secretary of Agriculture, Anson Tebbets, and the Vermont Fair Association, Jackie Folsom, who has another presentation.
Wow. Goodness. All right.
Good to see you. Well, good morning, and thank you, and just an honor to be here in the Northeast Kingdom. Thank you all the legislators for their hard work the last couple of years, Senator Ingalls and Senator Starr. I had the pleasure of covering Senator Starr as a member of the media over the years, and we always had a wonderful relationship. I think we traveled around New England with a compact from time to time. And the work on the Housing Conservation Board, and a true leader in the House for, I guess we say 26 years, right? 26 years in the House and 20 in the Senate, and one of the great skilled legislators to get work done. And as Senator Starr says, he did it for his constituents. You were first and foremost in his work down there, working for the constituents. So I get to read this. There's a wonderful plaque here, and it's from Vermont's North Country Chamber of Commerce. It recognizes Robert Bobby Starr for 46 years of service to the Vermont legislature. Your dedication and commitment to the state and its residents are greatly appreciated. 2024. Congratulations.
Well, I thought people were talking about somebody else until I saw my name come up. I didn't expect any of this, and it's a little bit bittersweet, you may say. all the years I've been down there, well, to start with, the only reason I went was to help the Northeast Kingdom. I didn't go down there to run to be governor or congressman or anybody else. I just wanted to be Bobby Starr, representing my little district out on the west side of Newport here, and then it just worked out to Jim Greenwood. Senator Greenwood was getting done, and he came over to the House and said, I understand you aren't too happy the way things have been going the last couple of years here in the House. And I said, well, been pretty bad. And, well, he said, I'm retiring. Why don't you try to run and get my seat? And so I went home and talked with Anita and the family and said, you know, it's 5 times more work being a senator than it is being a rep, and it's going to require a lot of time, energy, and away from home probably a little more. Well, in the end, everybody kind of agreed, well, we really need help down there, and if you want to run for it, but win. You know, don't be a loser. And I said, well, I've never been a loser, so if I run for it, I'll win, I'll tell you. And so I did, and it went well, and you know, I've enjoyed representing all you folks and the folks previous to you that were here then and are gone now. Had a great group back then from up north, Frank Spates, Bill Farrow, Kerm Smith, I mean, Maud Durkin. The list just goes on and on. But we, of course, over the years, I've been a pretty lonely Democrat, you know, and but the people here in the kingdom have, I guess, looked at me sort of as a middle-of-the-road guy. I'd served years on the school board, the North Country Supervisory Union Board, chaired that, did the negotiations for the teacher's contract a few years in a row. So I had quite a lot of experience how to deal with folks before I ever got to Montpelier. And you know, when I went down, they said, well, why do you want to be on ag and on the ag committee? And I said, well, you know, if I'm going to go down there and represent my district, I want to represent the folks that I've worked with off and on for years, of course, growing up on a farm, going to ag school, and actually, I got into the trucking part of the business through my uncle, who was starting a lime and fertilizer business, and he needed somebody that knew something about ag to do that. So I worked for the state for, I don't know, a year, and my wife and I were thinking of getting married, and I said, and the ag agency said, well, you should get married and then move to Chittenden County. We'll let you be in charge of that. And I scratched my head a couple of times and said, well, I think I'm going back home. And so anyways, I went to work for my uncle doing that. So I got to know, you know, Doug Nelson and people from all over the county doing lime, spreading lime and hauling fertilizer and that. So it brought me back home, and, you know, I've never had one second thought about moving anywhere else or wanting to move. We've just live in a beautiful spot. got the best, recreational things that anybody could want. All of our beautiful lakes and Jay Peak is, of course, I was into that right up to my eyeballs, getting permits and helping them. But it's been a good run, and I certainly need to thank my family for letting me do this, and thank all you folks for electing me year after year. And Dan, before you come up, I just want to straighten out one quote that I was the longest serving. Well, Bill Doyle beat me by 2 years, so I'm in second place and I was working on going to, no, I wasn't. But thank you all very much, and thank you for this wonderful plaque, Anson and Jackie, for coming.
It just wouldn't have been right without giving him the hook one last time. Thank you, Senator Starr. Thank you, everybody. And this concludes it, and we will see you all next year. Thank you.